Hey, Vortex Garage here. Thought I'd grab the camera, give you a little bit of a quick update. It's now Thursday night, and kind of similar story as of Tuesday night. Out here with just a little bit of time, getting a couple things done on the truck. It's getting kind of late at night, off of work, trying to get a little garage time in. So not a lot of progress because of that, but I did want to show you a couple things. In the last update video, we talked about how the carburetor needed a different type of linkage, and I didn't order the right linkage bracket. So I went ahead and ordered that, and it came today. So I came out here to kind of take a look at how that would all hook up, and I can kind of show you what we're dealing with. So right here on the workbench. So here's our Summit carburetor. All right, so this is again Summit 600 CFM electric choke, and here's the linkage assembly on it. And it's basically, like I said, a Holley design, so you end up buying the Holley style brackets for it. So this is the new bracket that we got, and it's a nice sturdy piece. And this is where the throttle cable and TV cable for the transmission will come on. And this basically mounts on the rear stud mount and has a kind of little locating tab there to keep it from twisting. All right, so that's going to go there. And then this right here is the kind of geometry adjustment for the 700R4. You definitely need this if you're setting up a 700R4. So real quick before I show you how these mount up, I want to talk a little bit about this bolt here and show you a couple things really quick. So up on the engine, and yeah, by the way, to get up here it's so tall I have to basically stand on a ladder, and then I lean over top, and you get jabbed pretty good with the hood release. I know there's things you can build and things that people sell if you're working on a truck, and I gotta tell you what, if you're working on something full-time that's this big, I'd definitely get something like this. But I'm just kind of taking care of this issue on this truck, so hopefully I won't be working on it too much more. But at any rate, these are the Carb Studs right here. As you can see, I'm running, this is the insulator gasket that came with the Summit Carb. I've got a new square bore gasket down here. And then in between, I've got a 1-inch spacer. So this truck had the spacer on it, and it had, as a result, these long Carb Studs. Let me show you what those look like. So these have like a fine thread pattern up top, like that, and then a coarser thread at the bottom. And that's probably gonna not focus too well. Hopefully you can kind of see that. Okay, so the main issue is, with the spacer and this kind of thick insulator gasket that came with it, which I'm going to go ahead and run, once the carb sits on it, let me put it on and I'll show you, there isn't a lot of stud length left. So there's enough to go ahead and put on a bolt. Let me grab the carburetor. Go ahead and plop it on. I'm not right-handed, if you can't tell. Whoops. As you can tell, as I get everything non-lined up. Okay, there we go. All right, got it on. So as you can see here, there's not a lot of stud height. So we've got enough to get a nut and a washer on. But the issue is when we put that bracket on, there's not enough room on the stud to actually bolt a nut. So what I did, I found a bolt that I had, which just happened to be a grade 8. And it was a little bit long based on measuring it against the stud. And so what I did is I cut it down and then took it over to the bench grinder and just ground it off a little bit. There's plenty of threads. There's actually more threads on this piece than are on the studs themselves, the coarse parts of the threads. And since it's a bolt head, I don't need to worry about anything. I'm just going to basically drop this in the back and bolt it on with the bracket. So let's go ahead and take the carb off. And just gotta be careful with it. We'll come back to our bench. Sorry about that. All right. So this bolt is going to get used in this back piece right here. And I went ahead and just put a lock washer and a washer on it for now. All right. So this will basically sit in here. This will go on like this, and then once it's bolted down, that'll be nice and straight. Okay, and then so you can kind of see that's where your throttle cable up top and TV cable in the bottom will pass through. Okay, so that'll sit on the back of the carburetor like that. This is the back of the engine here. And then this piece right here will mount. There's a couple little locating pieces that are easy to see. They're a little hard maybe right here and right here. Since this piece is black, it might be hard to see on camera, but looks okay. All right, so this would go here. And then you would basically screw on your, use some nuts and bolts that came with it, get this attached. And then you can go ahead and mount your throttle cable up to it. And what this does is, as you can see, this moves the part where the actual pivot for the TV cable is, and it adjusts the geometry. So the whole idea here is that you have your two cables that come out, your TV on the bottom, and then your throttle cable up at the top. As you open the throttle, there's a bit of a ratio difference here. So this is the pivot stud. It's a little longer out here where the throttle cable is versus down here where the TV kickdown cable is. The TV cable, it's not a kickdown cable per se for the 700R4. So what we're doing with this piece is we're actually adjusting the geometry so that way you're getting the right length of pull on your TV cable to match the pull from idle to wide open throttle on your throttle cable. And that's necessary because on the 700R4 it has a plunger type mechanism, and I'm sure there's some transmission experts that can tell a lot better detail of exactly what it is. But it affects the line pressure and is basically the link between the throttle position and what the transmission should be doing. So it's not like the old style just a kickdown cable. It does a lot more. It modifies your line pressure throughout the entire shift patterns and range. So very important to have these pieces. So this will go right here. And then you've got your bracket in the back. So your TV cable hooks up right here. And then your throttle cable up top. And of course, we'll show you more of that when we get it all put together. But I'm happy to say that the parts came today so we can make some progress. And like I said, I came out here to just make sure that this would fit. I knew those studs would be a problem. And yeah, I could get rid of the spacer. Let me walk back over. So I could get rid of that spacer, but the problem is I don't have another set of carb studs, short ones. I can't really cut them the way they're designed. I might be able to. So I could probably run it without it. But I like the carb spacer. I want to use it if we can. So I think that bolt method that I have is going to work really well. All right, let's see other things since last time. So I did get the right bolts for the water neck here, and got that installed. We also got this piece today. The old one in the old intake manifold just would not come out. So went ahead and got a new one and put it in, and got that in tonight. So we're ready to hook the heater hoses back up. You can see I still haven't run the ignition wires. I've got our cylinder 1 marked on the distributor, but basically I want to pull these off and just kind of reroute them, make sure they're routed the best way that they can be. So another thing, I want to just fiddle with it a little bit and take more time than I probably should. I had a little bit of spark plug wire OCD, I guess. So again, here's the old intake manifold that we took off. It is an Edelbrock Performer. It's a spread bore pattern. This is a 3701, I believe. Let me flip it over. Yep, there you go, 3701. And the unit itself looks pretty good. It doesn't look like it's in rough shape. I think when one of the bolts for the water neck, because I had put that water neck on it before, it had the original one first. I remember I did that job about 6 months ago, and one of the bolts here might need, I think I chased the threads on it. It came off all right and it was sealed and it wasn't leaking, but I'd have to check that out. Otherwise, the thing's in pretty good shape. The main issue that I found with it was obviously the spread bore pattern, and it'd be nice to get something new. We don't need the EGR or the heat riser for the carb, so just a nice cleaner look, and the thing's kind of old and just needs some cleanup. But it also had this funky stuff on it that we never took off, and it's good to replace these with actual plugs. So this one in the back here, and this old temp sender up here in the front. So of course you saw in the new one, we've got all those replaced. Now this, when this was installed by whoever put this kit on in the first place, it was looks like they used some pipe sealant, and this is just glued on and won't come loose at all. So I'm just going to leave it on there, and that's why I decided this thing looks grungy anyway. I'll go ahead and pick a new one up like we did and put on there. So that's the old one. And that's the new one. So like I said, sorry, turn around so you can talk to me. So like I said, we're making a little bit of progress, and we're going to press ahead. So I'm not sure I'm going to get too much more done tonight just because it's so late. But good news is the weekend's coming up, and hopefully I can get out here, wrap this job up, and maybe even work on the Spitfire a little bit or some other projects we have here. And I'll grab the cameras and try to walk you around, show you some other things we have going on, maybe introduce a few more project vehicles that come by from time to time, and talk a little bit about those. But for tonight, that's pretty much it. Again, we're just going to clean up, put our carb away, and just wanted to show you how we got the brackets and rigged up that bolt to mount everything, and just talk a little bit about how this is all going to mount up from a throttle and TV cable perspective with that 700R4 in mind. So, we'll talk to you again soon, and hope you enjoy the little update videos.